The first day of the new school, despite being one of supernatural influences, was mostly uneventful. Issei still had normal classes like math, languages, literature, science, and history, as well as physical education, just with supernatural influences. Alongside math and science was magic studies and training, with history that covers local history normally taught in high school, but also ancient history that covered supernatural history for all powers. Literature and languages covered all supernatural ones as well. Science also talked about mythical elements and metals and techniques of each realm. And physical education also included combat training. And that's not including the optional electives. Technology that includes magic tech, creature studies, art, smithing, artifact crafting, business education, finance, and much more. And so many more related to both normal classes and supernatural-related ones. Issei had ancient history, magic arts, physical education, and technology studies his first semester. Rias wanted to be in all his classes, but forgot sign-up sheets were done privately, and she didn't put any technology or similar classes on her list. Xerxes did put them both in the same ancient history class, but that was it, much to Rias's displeasure. On day 2, in homeroom surprisingly showed a video on the blackboard-sized TV monitor in front of the room. The morning announcements aired like a news broadcast lead by the student council. A cute girl with long white hair and blue eyes introduced herself as Mira Jane, and that she would be hosting the announcements. She started with normal school stuff, but eventually it got interesting. She started a segment called Star Coverage. They started showing the progress so far of the star ranking tournament. Even if it was only the second day of school, some seemed to take the challenge with eager minds. Some challenged random students to hand-to-hand fights. Some challenged others to games of the mind or skill. And some were just boring. Rias was a good chunk of the matches, with her normal subordinates just throwing games to give her their stars. Which her own star and her normal members' stars as well, she instantly got to 6, and surprisingly, one of the student council did the same, bringing Rias up to the required 7. The council member must have been one of Sona's, seeing how she has a full set of 16 normally and only needed 7. Strangely, the white hair girl that sat next to Issei in homeroom that saved him before froze, staring at the screen intently, when the part with Gasper giving his star to Rias aired. The screen went on and showed what happened to Rias also happened to Sona. Another set of boring games to just had stars to Sona. At least she had them play chess with her to win them, even though she is impossible to beat at that game. Issei even popped up on it, making the class laugh because he had Danny and Jinwoo's stars obtained from a difficult game of Mario Kart. Moore kept playing with a few more gaining stars in a similar way to Rias and Sona. The blonde prick Rizer was one of them. Homeroom began to end when the girl with the white hair stopped Issei. "We need to talk," she said with her piercing red eyes staring seriously at him. The two make their way out of the school and find a hidden away spot behind a supply building. "You know, it'd feel awkward to have been saved by you twice and not even know your name." She briefly closed her eyes as if inconvenienced. "That is part of why I brought you out here. You see, my name is Erza van Dracula, Princess of the Vampire Kingdom of Transylvania and daughter of the king of all vampire kind, Lord Vlad von Dracula the Impaler." Author's note: you might have noticed, but just to confirm with listeners, I am combining the characters of Erza Scarlet from Fairy Tale and Mocha from Rosario Plus Vampire. Not only were they voiced by the same actress, at least white Mocha was, but I plan to leave her in white hair mode and Mocha suits pink Mocha more than her white hair self. She will also have Erza-like qualities, so it's the two characters combined, so to speak. Issei was shocked. "The Dracula! He's real!" As he began to shout, Erza decked him in the nose. "Shut it! I don't want people blowing my cover!" Erza hissed. As Issei rubbed his nose, she sighed and straightened. "Sorry, listen. The reason I asked you here is to question if it's true you have connections to the Gremory girl." Issei was surprised at the question, but told her about his introduction to the supernatural and how Rias saved him and how they were friends now. "Please, you need to help me." Erza's demeanor completely changed from aggressive to pleading. "You have to convince her to let me see her bishop that student council mentioned." The boy, Issei cautiously puts a comforting hand on her shoulder and asks what this is all about. She can't bring herself to say, but reminds him he owes her for saving him twice. Issei agreed, and soon enough his next class was Ancient History, where he shared the class with Rias. As the class came to an end, he brought up the request to Rias. "I appreciate that you want to help your friend, However, as Gasper's master, it's my job to see to his well-being, and frankly, he is scared of strangers and new people. I won't do anything that would make him uncomfortable. Issei understood her answer, considering her role. I understand. How about introducing me then? You know me, and if we become friends, he might trust me enough to agree to my request. The person I want to introduce is no enemy. She is someone who put her own life at risk to save mine, and I trust she means no harm. Issei recalled the look in Erzas's eyes when she saw Gasper on the morning announcements, and her face as she pleaded for his help. She wasn't a threat. As he parted ways with Rias, he made his way to the gym for PE. In gym class, the first day they mostly ran track. Today there was an obstacle course. After the gym teacher, Coach Chiron, a famous Greek centaur who trained Hercules, explained the ridiculous course full of barbed wire, pitfalls, and an earthquake simulator rock wall, a kid with a shadow gear challenged Issei to a 7-star match to who could make it through. Faster, no magic or gears allowed, betting 2 stars. This kid seemed to have it out for him. On day 1, he declared he would outpace him in the mile they were asked to run, only to lose pace halfway through. Already seeing this guy would keep this up, and how he needed more stars anyway. He accepted. Chiron had no problems with this, and even encouraged it by clearing the course for the 2 of them. The star app activated, covering the obstacle course in a protective field, and set out of bounds. The obstacle course changed into 2 copies in a straight line with a checkered finish line now at the end. Obstacles were added, and old ones stayed. The course started with lined-up tiers, then a barbed wire army crawl, then a fissure that was as wide as a river with floating stones the only way to cross, then a set of metal chains, and other climbing material like that seen on Greatest Ninja Warrior, ending in a rock wall that had falling rocks and shook like an earthquake before the finish line. Overhead showed a display made of light magic showing Issei's old picture of brown hair and hazel eyes, showing beside it his full name, grade, title, and 3 stars with 2 grayed out to show what was bet. On the other side showed the long black-haired glasses wearing profile of, according to the display, said, Conla Coroaro, first year, race, human hero, title, none. Stars, 2, both grayed out. The 2 took their places in front of their half of the course. As the challenger, Conla got to set the rules. No time to limit. No gear powers or magic. Only our bodies to reach the end. No interfering with the other, and first to cross the finish line after completing the course wins. Issei smirked and looked to the end of the course. As he entered the school, he set it up that it could be his escape as he continued to work on his Dragon Nation outside of his school life. However, with Sona's reveal of Rias's forced engagement and Rizer's arrogant declaration of taking her hand finally, once he wins this whole tournament, changed his mind. As the countdown began, Issei released his true human form. His hair turned crimson and grew longer, his skin coated in gray scales, his eyes' pupils turned to slits. He also called out his tail and wings out his back. Conla's face looked shocked, not expecting the transformation. Issei filled his wings closed and looked to his opponent again. Don't worry, I'll give you a chance and not fly, as it would defeat the purpose of the course. The countdown reached 0 as people realized that the display swapped his race from human hero to dragon hero, and his picture changed to his red hair appearance. The 2 ran forward to the tires, and Issei walked as if his tail was a 3rd leg, adding speed and precision. When he got to the army crawl, he used the points on both the top and bottom of his folded wings and tail to add points of contact to the ground, and helped propel him forward, crawling along the ground like a true lizard. By the time Issei got out of the army crawl and looked back, Conla just finished the tires and was beginning the crawl. Issei, as promised, didn't fly over the fissure and just leaped over the whole crack to the other side, and ran to the Ninja Warrior part of the course. Issei's extra limbs helped with balance and added to his ability to latch onto oncoming ledges and chains. Even if he was a dragon, he moved faster than a monkey in the jungle. He soon was on the rock wall. He latched onto the rocks with his claws while using his tail and wings to shield himself from the falling rocks until he was on the top and took one big leap over the last chunk of course over the finish line, taking the victory with minimum effort. When the magic buzzer blared that the game was over, as Issei retracted his wings, tail and scales as he checked on Conla. Conla was still on the last platform of the fissure when the buzzer called. The area began to shake as the second course merged once again with the first, and the fissure closed and the ninja warrior part disappeared. Conla was on all four crying in frustration about why he wasn't skilled enough, while Kyron looked to where the game's add ones once were in his course. Excellent work, Hudu. Conla, thank you for modification ideas for future courses, but it would seem I need to put you in a tougher regiment to get you in proper shape. The rest of the class had looks of shock and for some jealousy to Issei, as his race being revealed before everyone. Issei pulled out the black ribbon Shuna made him to hold his hair back and readjusted his hair in its normal ponytail. His eyes still had slit pupils as he looked to the part of the star spell that recorded the match and decided now was the time. Issei let his wings, tail, and horns appear as he began to float of the ground with determined expression on his face. The class around him saw where he was looking and saw he wasn't just talking to them when he began to speak, he was talking to the whole school. As the cameras would show the next day in homeroom as the third day of school began, footage of the recent star matches displayed. Some drawers' attention like Zephyrdor whining 3 in hand-to-hand combat against another prideful demon pillar. But none shocked the school like Issei's. Not for his victory or the surprising reveal of his dragon blood, but what he said as he won. Everyone had their eyes glued to the screen, and unlike normal, no one was talking through it. Issei was floating of the ground, tail swaying and wings flapping with a subtle mirage of heat surrounding him like an aura, as his piercing draconic eyes staring straight at the camera, with the horns on his head looking kinda like a crown with the commanding presence he was giving off. Issei spoke clearly to the screen as if addressing the whole school. Some of you may have seen me in school, or simply heard of me as some human with a strength-boosting gear. Some acquaintance of the Gremory family that was let in on their recommendations. I'm correcting that now. My name is Issei Hudu, and I am Emperor of all dragons. I am the lord of the realm called Zemuria. I am a full-blooded dragon. The dragon of ash, and the bearer of both the red and silver heavenly dragons. Issei gestured to the winner sign behind him from the game he just won. I am far from just some pushover who would be an easy star like much of you must have thought. I don't only plan on gaining 7 stars and a slot in the rating game tournament. Issei suddenly transformed into a full-sized dragon and let out a roar, now confirming to the students where that noise came from yesterday. When he was done, he morphed back in his simple reed-haired form, no longer showing his dragon qualities. I plan to win this whole tournament. Pointing his finger directly at the camera in challenge, he let the most surprising statement of all out for all to hear. I recently found out that the beautiful Lady Rias of the Gremory household is unfortunately against her will engaged to a pompous loser who treats women like property and has laughingly declared he will marry her when he wins this tournament. Issei's whole body became engulfed in gray flames, so hot his body underneath waved from the mirage. This fool not only thinks he can actually claim the title, but he dared to try and take what's mine. At that, the whole school did a sharp inhale. Issei's eyes were not just draconic, but glowing from Drake's boosted green energy. Let's me make this clear. Rizer Phoenix and Gremory family. Rias doesn't have to be with anyone she doesn't want to. I will be the one who will win this tournament for her and take her hand in marriage. Rias is mine, and there is nothing a barbecue chicken can do to change that. The whole school was stunned quite at the information dump they just received. 1, the initially weak-looking Issei was a full-blooded dragon. 2, he proclaimed himself not just a dragon, but the emperor of all dragons. 3, he had 2 heavenly dragons as sacred gears on top of that. 4, he declared he will win the tournament without even having 7 stars yet. 5, he declared war on Rizer and Rias's parents. And 6, he just openly proclaimed his love for the Princess of Ruin. His homeroom went to look at him to see his seat empty. In the office of the student council president, Sona smiled at her office monitor, while in Rizer's homeroom the sound of his desk catching on fire could be heard from the halls, followed by the sound of the desk being thrown. A lot of people went looking for Issei, including the bewildered and filled with joy Rias. However, he took the day off. Even he was surprised at his boldness that day. When he saw where the phone app was recording the match, he just began to move and talk without thinking. It just came spilling out. Truth be told, the embarrassment made him run. there sitting down under a tree in his realm, Zemuria as he named it. His face flushed at the thought of facing Rias when he gets back. Truth be told, he has had the feeling she has liked him for a while. Sure, if what Sona said was true, Rias originally wanted him for Drake's power to not have to marry Rizer. However, over this past summer, 3 whole months together helping the Gremory and Citri teams, he has gotten to get closer to them all. Over that time, running packs, training with the teams, dealing with Rouge demons, holy sword users, the clash at the council meeting. During all that, Rias seemed to show times of showing him more attention, talking more to him, and overall getting closer. It really hit him when he returned from his transformation, and the first thing that happened as he returned, she instantly embraced him in such pure worry and concern, just like the day she found him in front of his dead friends. She truly worried for him. It's just a woman, no a goddess such as great as her liking some no-good ex-perv nobody. His father's words from when he turned 13, he told him, "Son, the best advice I can give you about girls is no matter what, the worst thing you can do to one is ignore or run from their feelings. Whether good or bad as a man, it's your job to face any head-on, by bracing through their storm or running head first into its fire. Just never run away." Issei sighed at the advice. First thing he did was run. Issei looked down at the slowly growing village of his domain. At first it was pitched tents made of deer skins and sticks with just the goblins. When the werewolves and Kijin arrived, they helped upgrade to simple log cabin-like structures. As he watched, trying to think of how he should handle his next face-to-face with Rias, one of the Kijin approached him. When he turned to look, it was the purple-haired one named Shion was addressing him. "My lord, we have some new arrivals that request sanctuary. As requested, we sent Sway, Bulk, Skull, and Ronga out to spread the word to monstroms in potential need of sanctuary, along with the dragonification condition, and they returned with several refugees." Issei saw it as a good excuse to shelf his problems just a little longer, as he followed her to the central tent they set up as his meeting office. Awaiting him was a surprising set of representatives. First was a large orc, a race that were half man, half pig/boar. The second was a lizardman. The third was what looked to be if you took the idea of a centaur, but swapped the horse half with the body of a spider, and last and more shocking was a dwarf. Issei took his seat before them and calmly asked them to rise. He still wasn't completely comfortable with people kneeling before him yet. Shion took her place to his left, and already waiting for him on his right was his strongest aide, the red-haired Kijin known as Benimaru. Issei looked to the orc. "So let's start with you. Please tell me your story. What brings you to my domain, and if you wish to move here, are you willing to be evolved to a new dragon kind?" The orc looked up. "My name is Geld, leader of a large clan of orcs. Unfortunately, our homeland has become nothing but a barren wasteland, and our people are starving. We thought the evolution requirement odd, and didn't even know it could be done, much less if you would want creatures like orcs to mix with such a dignified race. But if you would have us and allow us into your realm where we can finally find food, we would be happy to join." The lizard man introduced himself as well. "Pardon me, my lord. My name is Gabiru, and I too was surprised at this reincarnation requirement. To us lizard men, dragons are the most respected of the higher powers. The idea of being able to become one is a dream of our kind." The spider woman spoke next. "My name is Mio. I lead my web of Alka. We used to Lee in the country of Greece, however, with the growth of mankind, it's been more difficult to find peaceful home for our kind. And we see no real issues with evolution, however, we don't even know if we could." Issei looked to the dwarf. "To be honest, I'm most surprised to see a dwarf before me. I always thought your kind hailed from Asgard. Why would dwarven kind ever want to leave there? You're not on the run, are you?" The bearded man chuckled. "No, my lord. Not all dwarven kind live in Asgard. My group are from the German Alps. We live our lives in the mines below the mountains. However, humans make it more and more harder to keep a low profile, as well as receiving an offer to potentially live in a new land, not covered in frost and snow. Who could resist?" "And what of my condition on living here?" Issei asked. The dwarf knelt once again. "My name is Kaijin, and it would be our honor to reincarnate as requested." The other 3 followed his lead. Issei decided to show them the answer they seeked. With a raise of his hand, Benimaru stepped forward as well as Shion. As you can see, they were Kijin. Now they are a new breed of dragon. The Kijin unfurled wings and tails from behind them, and their skin coated in scales of their corresponding colors. These two, along with everyone here, has gone through the process. So far, we have hobgoblin dragons, werewolf dragons, and Kijin dragons. The process is uncomfortable at first, but not painful. Like all dragons have human and dragon forms, as well as an in-between. When you transform, you will have a form that should look mostly like your current selves, with only increased physiques, and in some cases height, as well as your own dragon form and in-between stage. If you accept my conditions to live in my realm, there are a few rules. First, no belittling other races. Here you're all dragons. First, your previous race is now just a subclass of dragon now. 2. You are expected to help contribute to growing this realm. Right now, our priority was gaining population, but now, with your skills and numbers, we can move forward on making better homes and cities. 3. Basic decency laws are in place and can be learned more about from our village leader and gourd. Basically, if it's immoral, don't do it. 4. Everyone needs to find a way to contribute, either by labor, talent, or knowledge. We need each other in order to grow. And lastly, 5. Do your best to live your lives to the fullest. Issei had a faraway look in his eyes, saying that last part as he thought of his lost friends. I don't want anyone under my watch's life to end filled with regrets and what-ifs. As he said that, Rias popped up in his mind. It was almost as if he gave himself a pep talk unintentionally. The 4 before him looked at him in surprise at the kind and just rules, and at the love in the last one. They all agreed instantly, and right in front of them, he transformed into his middle state and plucked off 4 scales. This part is kinda gross, but you each will need to consume one of these to start the evolution process. The 4 took the scales and began the process and cocooned into eggs. Inside, he could feel their auras growing. Issei turned to Benimaru. Please see that their eggs are protected while they go through the process. Then go and formally invite the rest of their groups to our kingdom and have everyone pass out scales that they can spare until we get them all evolved. I would recommend about a dozen of each group at a time. Issei then turned to Shion. Shion, please go with Benimaru and get a head count, then see to it that Rogard starts the process of setting up housing for our incoming residents. We may need to temporarily expand to separate villages. The Kijin bowed and went to complete their orders. Issei left the tent and watched his ever-growing domain full of life. Finally, it was time to face the fire. That night, Issei changed into his most formal wear he owned, made by his village seamstress by her insistence when she found out his plans. Shuna made him a pair of tailored black slacks, leather black boots with silver trim, a crimson red button-up shirt with a black tie decorated like ashen smoke and sparks drifting up its length, a tailored black jacket trimmed in silver in such a way it looked like a jacket worn by a noble. He had a handcrafted silver ring to feed his hair through for his ponytail that had the pattern of flames along the ring. Issei took a deep breath as he approached the front doors of the old Kuo Academy schoolhouse. The Gremory team heard their house meetings. Above, as he approached, Akino saw him through the second-floor window and quickly closed the window's curtains to not spoil his arrival to her master. Rias was nose-deep in paperwork that technically could wait, but after seeing Issei and this morning's announcements, she became so flustered she couldn't concentrate all day. She desperately needed something to keep busy after she was unable to find him at school. Akino politely excused herself, making up a reason of getting some tea. As she quickly left, she gestured for Yuto, Kaneko, Gasper, and Asia to follow. Rias wasn't even aware of them sneaking out to distracted by her thoughts. By the time Issei got to the front entrance of the schoolhouse, the door opened for him before he could even knock. Yuto calmly stepped outside, holding the door for him without saying a word, just a knowing smile on his face and a nod of good luck. As Issei stepped in, he found the whole Gremory team on each side of the entrance smiling and waiting for him. Issei stepped into the entryway, flanked by the demons. Akino, as Rias's best friend and queen, spoke for everyone. Go get her, Tiger, she giggled, making Issei blush. Issei made his way to her office door, and unknown to both of them, Asia used magic to lower the lights in the office to a low, almost candlelight level. Yuto, already knowing most the group would want to spy on them, used his speed to place soundproof spells around the room before he left so they could have privacy. A soft knock at the door brought Rias out of his thoughts. She looked up, about to ask Kaneko to open the door, to see she somehow ended up alone. Realizing the mess of her desk, she quickly started straightening papers in case it was her brother. Rias stood up, straightening her hair in nervous habit, and answered the knock. "Come in," she said, trying to sound composed until she saw who stepped into the doorway. Standing in the doorway was Issei, looking more striking than she ever seen him before. Long gone was the battered, minorly toned boy she found in the abandoned church. Now stood a 6-foot-tall, dashing, well-toned prince in an outfit befitting royalty. Rias could barely get out his name Issei before her voice caught in her throat from him taking her breath away, as she saw the memories of him calling her his in his last star game. Issei slowly stepped forward and held out his hand and asked, "Lady Gremory, would you be willing to come with me?" As if her body moved on its own, she wordlessly nodded and took his hand, now worrying about how she must look. Issei took her hand in his and opened a mist gate and lead her through. When they emerged, they were in a place Rias couldn't identify, but took what little air she had left in her lungs at the sight. They were on an open area on a mountainside overlooking beautiful landscape lit in the amber light of the setting sun. Below was a village of wooden cabins and tents. A large crystal-clear lake and beautiful-looking forest stretched out below them. The opening of the mountain they were standing on was littered with beautiful wildflowers, and blue balls of fire floating around like balloons casting soft light added a calming ambiance as well. A soft music playing from Shion hidden behind a set of large trees as she played her violin. Issei led her to the center of the clearing as his mist gate closed. And unknown inside Issei's mindscape, Drake and the past users he recruited gauged and tied Tomoe up so she couldn't interrupt the moment. With a trick Tomoe taught him. Initially to play pranks, he used his requip magic not on himself but on Rias, and swapped her school clothes with a pre-made dress he had prepared for her. Rias gasped in some much-needed air when her school uniform suddenly transformed into a red ball gown that looked like a crimson version of Belle's from Beauty, and the beast as it transformed like Cinderella's granted by her fairy godmother. Along with the violin, the elegant sound of piano music filled the air. Shuna behind the nearby rocks had a pre-set-up piano. She now strummed her fingers elegantly across its keys. Issei spared no expense at trying to make this moment perfect. He once again held out his hand and asked, "May I have this dance?" Rias let out the largest smile she ever had as she finally embraced the moment, and with small tears of joy beating in the corners of her eyes, she took his hand as they started to dance. For a while they just stared into each other's eyes until Rias's face felt so hot from flushing that she leaned into Issei, resting her head on his shoulder, turning their ballroom dance into a more slow prom dance. As the music slowed to a stop, so did their dance, just in time for the moon to rise in full, illuminating the sky along with the stars. Issei led her to a new location alongside the lake with an anti-insect field in place. Awaiting them was Soei in a tuxedo lighting candles on a dinner table. Issei pulled out a chair for her and helped her take her seat, and then took his own across from her. Soon, goblin women came and loaded up plates of hot food and filled glasses with wine. Issei was honestly surprised at how good they made everything. Once Shuna made her home in his realm and village, she brought tons of excellent cooking skills with her. Rias's eyes shined at everything. "I honestly have been too stunned and filled with joy to even speak until now, but Issei, just where are we? What is this beautiful place, and who are these monsters that has helped make this night so wonderful?" Issei smiled and answered her. "This is my domain. The realm I obtained along with my gaining of the Mirage Gear and my dragon evolution. And these are my people. We prefer the term monstroms, not monsters, but technically they are all dragons now. They heard about tonight and volunteered to help me make it special." She smiled at hearing that. With Issei's encouragement, they started eating, savoring every bite and drink. Once they were done, Issei noticed Benimaru stealthily setting up candles and tiki-like torches along the beach and lighting them right as the dinner ended. Just when every drop of wine was drank, Issei took Rias's hand and gently guided her along the beach on the lit path. With his keen dragon eyes, he could see they set up a good stopping point up ahead, giving him time to time his conversation just right. His stomach was full of butterflies and the muscles down his back tingled from the anxiety. In his mind's eye, he could see the gear plane, and Drake was giving him 2 thumbs up, Tomoe had eyes like she was watching a movie, even if gagged, and Rose was rotating her wrist in a circle like a hurry-up gesture. Issei brought himself back to the moment. They started walking along the shore, and Issei cleared his throat and finally started to speak his heart. Listen, Rias. About the other day. Rias looked up at him and softly smiled with a nervous voice. I sure was surprised, to say the least, when I saw the morning announcements yesterday. Yes. Well, when I was challenged to that game, I was mostly mulling over the information I just learned about your engagement. When I won, my emotions just improperly spilled out. At this point, the beach led to a cliff bank. In front of them ended their walk-in at the sand-covered cliff's base that Shion has decorated with flowers. Issei took both her hands in his and continued. You have helped me more than anyone else. I was just a dumb kid who had a run of bad luck and poked my head unnecessarily into a hornet's nest of fallen, and you didn't let me be. You saved me. In this crazy new world to me, you have held my hand and walked me through and helped me understand this new life of mine. Rias squeezed his hand. No one under my watch shall suffer if I can help it. Hearing this, Issei smiled again. That's what made me admire you so much during my time running packs with Yudo. He told me how you saved everyone in your house. Issei chuckled. That explains with how we met why you wanted to recruit me so much. You do love us strays. This made her laugh. I may have sprung it on you unexpectedly, but let me ask you properly. Rias, will you do this stray dragon the honor and go out with me with marriage in mind? I promise that I will put Rizer in his place and free you from your engagement, even if we have to elope. Rias's face was bright red. I would love to, Issei. Not just this new dragon you, but the awkward brown hair boy I met running headfirst into unknown danger to save a stranger. I promise to walk by your side and help you understand our new world, together. And with that, in the moonlight they leaned in and shared their first kiss.